All right. If you're, by all means, if you're still eating, please continue on. It's 12:30, so we're going to go ahead and get started and respect everybody's time. If you notice that we have a mixed group of guys with the blue blazers and some that don't have blue blazers, some that are in suits, but the gold badge, that's those things have been pretty cool. And so, remember 12 years ago when I come into the organization, I was looking at those badges, like, what is that all about? What makes those cats so special that their badges are gold and everybody else is red? And so, as y'all know, the gold badges reflect past presidents. And so that's quite an honor to have been in an organization and served as a president of this great organization. And the reward is to have that gold badge. So with that being said, it's time for me to do a presentation of a gold badge, and I'm going to ask Mr. Joe Fagundes if he'd come up. Let's give Joe a hand as he comes up. There you go. Rube just stole his red badge. I don't know if he's going to sell it on eBay or what, but. Well, Joe, on behalf of the All Sports Association, get your gold badge, brother.
Appreciate it.
Outstanding, man.
Appreciate it.
Congratulations. Thank you, brother.
Give him his medallion, too.
So I'll place that in there. All right, okay.
Medallion.
You also get a medallion here as well. It's got some weight to it, so I don't know if you want to bite it and see if it's real gold or not. But President 2017, Mr. Joe Fagundes. So congratulations on receiving this medallion as well.
Thank you, brother.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for all, Joe. Had a great year. All right, so with that being said, I'm going to introduce Mr. Rube Manasco, and he's going to carry the program from here. Rube.
Well, I'd like to extend my welcome to you all as well. Our normal MC was asked to be the presenter of one of our inductees today, so you're kind of stuck with me, and I surely won't be nearly as good as him, but there's one thing that I will not do, and that's berate Eddie Taylor about wearing that red sport coat.
You're not going to do it.
Not going to do it. Well, I know you've heard from both of these gentlemen already, but our 49th president, good old Bernard, this is his week to wear out the worry beads. This organization does a lot of events through the year and has a lot of discussions about what to do with the money that we make that can be trying. But this week, there are about a half a dozen events that started right now with this luncheon that continue through Friday night. Each one has their own speaker and logistics problems. It takes a real man like Bernard to pull that off. So congratulations, you're doing good so far. As you know, Bernard is a senior member of the senior management staff at Gulf Power. He's also the president of this association, but he is on the board of many other service and charitable organizations. This guy stays busy all the time, and we're fortunate to have him. You've also heard from Reverend Ross. You know, most of us choose an avocation or a career and we pursue it until we get to the place that we can retire and then go about doing some fun things the rest of our life. Well, in guys like Jim's case, they don't choose, they're chosen, and they never retire. And we're so fortunate that now that he stepped down from the pulpit, he has chosen to be the chaplain of this organization as he continues his ministry in retirement. Thank you, Jim. And to Jim's left is Mr. Steve Wolfram, a senior member of the Chelco staff. I got to tell you, they have sponsored this event every year since the very beginning in 2003, and we certainly appreciate you and your companies helping us make this happen every year. To his left is Dr. Bruce Simpson, the senior member of the Integrated Solutions for Systems staff. This is their first year as sponsor, and we welcome you and thank you. Not able to be here today was our second year sponsor. This is the first year for Integrated Solutions, is Mr. Greg Esses from Oasis Systems. Greg is a graduate of Duke University, and one of the things that came along with that is young men and women that want to go to Duke and apply have to be interviewed. and Greg has to do those interviews, and today was one of the last ones that he had to get done by this weekend, so he was unable to be here, but we thank Oasis as well. I'm not going to talk too much about those four handsome heroes up there on the top level, but being an astute married guy, I will tell you that I will recognize Barbara Norris, and Susan Mikel. They are the driving forces between our two inductees, and we welcome you, and we're proud to have you here. I think I missed Seth. Is that Seth down there on the end? From Playground? Well, we call it Northwest Florida Day News. Thank you for being here, Seth. Some other people that we need to introduce is Lynette J., our Hall of Fame and All Sports Association photographer. Glad to have you here, and thank you for doing the pictures. And you know, Bernard can't do all this by himself. He's supported by a board of directors, which includes other officers and members at large, and they help him make this event happen every year and the rest of the year. Would you guys please stand up, board members and other officers? Let's give them a hand. Since day one, the board has voted on the recipients or the inductees in the Hall of Fame. This year, for the first year, all the past presidents are voting as well. So we thank you for your effort there, in addition to helping Bernard. The Hall of Fame committee, up front here, Mike Coupe, would you please? Bill Roberts, Steve Boswell, Eddie Taylor, raise your hand. In the back, Dick Cannon. Who else am I missing? I know Mike Woodham was here, but he had to leave. Yeah. But these gentlemen, including yourself and Tom Brazil, who's the chairman of the committee, try to bring forth candidates for the board and now the past presidents to vote on for induction into the hall. So thank you, gentlemen, for all you do. Skip Rainier, I missed him. Sorry about that. Rayner, okay. And now the First Ladies, Carolyn Brigani, the wife of our chairman emeritus, Jerry Brigani. And I'm sure Jerry's looking down, sucking his teeth over those of you that didn't wear your gold badges or your hardware. And also here is Betty Harrison, wife of Houston Harrison, and I'm sure Houston's standing there looking at Buck Smith saying, "Hey boy, ain't you glad we're not down there having to wear those cowbells?" We have several of the inductees, previous inductees here. I thought E.G. Green was going to be here. Is he here? Nope. I do know that yours truly is here, and Ray Ross, are you right there in the back? Reverend Jim Ross, and Cliff Lewis. And finally, again, as I say, it's been said earlier, past presidents. Most of us gave 3 or 4 years working our way through the chairs to get to be president. Current day guys spend a half a dozen years being on the board and working their way through the chair to become president. So I'd like all the past presidents to please stand and be recognized. Come on, guys. Well, I think it's time now. And up first, our first inductee is Chester Norris. He will be presented by Cliff Lewis. Now, Cliff, as you know, is a former award winner, the professional award winner of this association, and he was inducted into the Hall of Fame last year. So welcome back, Cliff, and thank you for coming to present Coach Norris. And I know you're going to say some really good things about Chester. So I think it's my job to maybe get a little real. Many years ago, I was on the sidelines assisting Ralph Frangione with keeping the stats for the Vikings, and that meant I was just down there watching the ball game because Ralph did it all. And we were ahead of Choctaw barely. Choctaw got the ball back, and they were driving down. All we had to do, they had no timeouts, is just stop them one time, and they kept moving, and they kept moving, and they kept moving. And they scored, and they went ahead. About that time, there was hardly any time left. No way we were going to come back and win the ball game. I looked over at Chester. They had those old-timey headsets, looked like what Lily Tomlin wore on Laugh In, you know, one little round one here, one here. He jerked that thing off, slammed it down on the ground. It went in a million pieces. The poor student trainer or whatever was down on his knees crawling around trying to put it back together, and all of a sudden Chester drops down on his knees, looks up at the sky. And I was wondering, was he asking for forgiveness about breaking the headset, or was he saying, "Why me, Lord, did this happen?"
I don't remember that.
I didn't think you would. Without further ado, Cliff, come on down.
Good afternoon. Ms. Manasco, I got a better one than that. It must have been my junior year. It rained. We were getting ready to play Choctaw. It rained all day long. And I think this was like a Wednesday, maybe a Thursday. It rained all day long. So we were happy because we're going to get to go in the gym, sock feet, no hitting, you just have a fun day. So we get down to the field house, it's pouring down, raining, and Randy Hare was running around talking about how good it was going to be. So a little while later, Coach Norris comes out of his office, walks outside, looks up in the sky, and kind of does his hat like that, turns around and walks back in his office and closes the door. Randy Hare goes, "Hey, y'all, he in there talking to God." Because Randy said, "Y'all know he tight with God." I want you to know within 30 minutes, it quit raining and the sun came out and we walked across the street to practice. I can do that. you can talk to him. Again, thanks for having me back. And Coach Michaels and Coach Norris, had I not stood here last year and said all those wonderful things about you guys, you wouldn't be sitting up there. Just want to let y'all know that. But, there's a guy named Henry Adams. I'm sure he was a great educator. Henry Adams said, "A teacher affects eternity. He can never tell where his influence will end." Coaching, teaching, not a whole lot of difference. And excuse me, I got my glasses on. I'm trying to make this thing get a little bit bigger. But, every God story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. I said God. I'll get back to that later. This story began in 1972. I was probably about 5'11", 165-pound ninth grader getting ready to go into high school and really didn't have a clue what high school was all about. And people were talking to me about doing some different things. And John Vesey pulled up to the school one day in his police car. Got me in the back, and I just skipped school the day before. So I'm thinking, man, I'm gonna get locked up for skipping school. And so Mr. Vesey took me over to Fort Walton Beach High School to meet Coach Norris. And I was kind of, meandering around the field house, looking at pictures on the wall and seeing different things. And Coach Norris came out and called me in. And instead of giving me a big sales pitch and telling me how great things would be at Fort Walton Beach High School, he looked me dead in the eye and he says, "Cliff, what do you want out of high school football?" And I told him, and he said, "Well, I think if you come over here, we could possibly make that happen." Now, that was the beginning of the story. And the middle and the end is still being written. The middle of the story was late night phone calls to Coach Norris after I've gone off to college. The middle of the story has been him driving hundreds of miles to watch me coach. The middle of the story has also been my senior year in college. Now, I had a lot of important men in my life. But probably two of the most important men in my life were my father and Coach Norris. And there's other people, other men just as important. Well, another one sitting right over there. And y'all heard me tell that story last year. The best football game I ever played in my life as a USM football player was against Auburn University my senior year. And the fact that my father and Coach Norris were sitting in the stands made it even more special, because those were the two men that I wanted to impress most of all as a young man. Now, this thing is about Coach Norris, and he always wanted Coach to be proud of my efforts. And one thing he taught us, one of the first things I remember Coach Norris telling us was, "Man, there ain't no free lunch." And the older I've gotten, the more sense that has made to me. He never talked about the outcomes, the winning, the losing. He's always preached effort. Make sure you put the effort in. Two guys, and my wife is not here this year. She told me not to deliver a dissertation. But we talk about the impact that he had on us as a coach and as a teacher. Well, one day, must have been 74, 75, really can't remember. We were out practicing tour days. It's hot, it's hot, and Coach ain't saying nothing, and we all just kind of wanting to get it over with. And we look across the field, and two guys who had graduated the year before, Mike Ammons and Don McBride. They come walking across the field, and they are spit shine, looking good in these green Marine Corps uniforms, and the chest is out and shoulders are back. So they walk up and they're talking to Coach Norris. And Mike Ammons said, "Coach, can we talk to the guys for a minute?" Coach said, "Sure." He called us all up, and Mike Ammons told us, he said, guys, whatever he called it, he said, "McBride and I just left basic training at Paris Island." He said, "We watching guys punch out every day, all day." And he said, "We're laying there in the mud, and guys are screaming and yelling and cussing at us, and we're dirty, and we ain't had a bath, we ain't been to sleep." And he said, "We looked at each other one day, and we said, man, we've been through tour days with Coach Norris. This ain't nothing." He was a hard driver. But he was fair. Now, I talked about, a God story. Probably the most familiar scripture in the Bible is John 3:16. He said, "For God so loved." Well, today is Valentine's Day. And people want to talk about "I love you" and all these hearts and all this stuff. Love in its true essence is from God. Now, I'm not trying to preach, I'm just trying to make a point. Only He can give you love. In all of His omnipresence and everywhere He's present in our lives, right down to the very fiber of what we do every day, He's involved in that. And He has a purpose and a plan for it. And 45 years ago, I met Coach Norris. I realized that was part of my purpose and my plan. And that's why the story is still being written. I have no idea where it's going to end. But I do know that he has been a great example to me, a great motivation to me, and numerous other guys. So when I'm standing here talking about him, it's not just me. It's guys like Randy Carter, Jim Rose, James DeVoe, Mike Cirillo, Mike and Bill Ramaka, Billy Michaels, Tony Durham, Chris Casey, Bill Barrett. All those guys are a part of what I'm standing here saying. Because no matter how long or how short their time with him, they left there with something that could carry them for the rest of their lives. Now, Coach, again, I said one of the very first lessons we learned from you was there ain't no free lunch. So I went up in the attic the other day and bouncing around in the attic, and my wife said, "What are you doing up there in that attic? You need to clean it out." So I hurried up and found what I was looking for so I could get down before she wanted me to go up there and actually clean it out. But Coach, I found this picture, and I know you're going to get this plaque, but I want to give you this picture, Coach. And it's 1983, I think. We're playing Tampa Bay, and there's a picture here with me sacking the quarterback, and I wrote on this picture, Coach Norris, there is no free lunch. Okay? And there ain't never been and there ain't never will be. Ain't no English, mate. Any English teachers in here? Cindy, you know, okay, whew, God. All right. There isn't a free lunch. Any place, at any time. But without further ado, my friend and my mentor, Coach Chester Norris.
Cliff, you need a few more minutes?
There's a country song where the guy says, "I wish I just had 5 more minutes." But the song is longer than 5 minutes, and I'm just...
But anyway, I appreciate those kind remarks. The hardest thing I had to do while Cliff was talking was keep my head from doing like this. But I am so appreciative of Cliff. You know, last year I had the honor of presenting Cliff when he was inducted, and I asked him this year to return the favor, and he so graciously accepted. I don't know if that's ever been done before, but it's unique to me and special to me. And Cliff, thank you for driving a long, long way to come and share this time with me. Something always reminds me of something, but those glowing words that Cliff had to say about me reminds me of a man that died, and they were having his funeral, and the preacher just went on and on and on, and all kind of glorifying him and praising him and everything, just on and on. So about 10 minutes, his wife had kind of, I guess, got enough, and she told her son, says, "Go up there and look in that casket and see if that's your daddy in there." So that's kind of the way I feel. I've got to look and see, is this really me? But I was afraid I was going to be late, because when I first got here, I signed over 100 autographs. Now, I don't know if any of you want one, but if you do, I got them in the car. And if you'll come out, and I'll be glad to give you one. But seriously, I am honored to be here, and this is a special day for me. And so this is one shot. So I hope I don't bore you, but I'm going to try to be as quickly as I can. But you know, anytime that one person is recognized for something, there's usually other people involved. And I want to take a few minutes and recognize some of those people today. First of all, I want to introduce my wife, Barbara, who has put up with me for over 30 years. I don't know how she's done it, but she has, and I don't know if Jim remembers, but you married Barbara and me many years ago. And we still appreciate that and think about it. And then I want to start over here at our guest table today, and just, if I can remember all the names. And I'm just going to start with Mike Whitfield. And Mike, most people know you, but just raise your hand if you don't mind. Mike was one of our players at Fort Walton Beach and one of the good guys and did an outstanding job. And we've had a chance to converse 2 or 3 times trying to get Coach Townsend and myself to come down for a Choctaw-Fort Walton game. We just hadn't been able to get together. And then I want to introduce Mr. C.F. Reynolds. Mr. Reynolds, I still can't call you CF. No, I can't do it. But Mr. Reynolds was our principal at Fort Walton Beach High School. And those of you that have coached before, you know that a principal can make or break your program. If he doesn't give you the reins or some freedom to do what you feel like you need to or want to do, it's going to be tough. But I can honestly say that Mr. Reynolds was probably our biggest fan and supporter. He gave our coaching staff the leeway to do the things that we felt like we needed to do or wanted to do to have a successful program. And I couldn't have asked for a better principal than Mr. Reynolds. He was just an ideal principal, and so glad I had an opportunity to work with him. And on his right is my grandson, Braden. Stand up, Braden. Let him get a look at you. Now, Braden played football at Baker under Coach Bob Kellogg, who coached with us out at Fort Walton, so that's unique and a special thing for me. And Bob was also his Sunday school teacher. So, you know, you don't find many coaches that a lot of times that teach Sunday school. And to his right is our son-in-law, Don, and his wife, my daughter, Debbie. And they live in Crestview, and we're just, Debbie graduated from Choctaw, and we are just so glad that they could be here today. And then my brother, Wes, raise your hand, Wes. I had no idea he was coming until last night. And that was quite a surprise. Drove all the way from Ocala, Florida to be here today, and I'm just so appreciative of him making the effort. He graduated from Choctaw too back in 60. And then to his right is our granddaughter, Haley. And Haley finished high school over in Springville, Alabama, right outside of Birmingham. And then our daughter, her mother, Donna, who is the librarian at Springville Middle. Is it Middle, Donna? And made that long drive. So I want to thank Cliff and my wife for being here with me, and all of our family, and Mr. Reynolds for making the effort, and some driving a long, long way to be here. I want to also recognize some people that I think contributed to our program and are responsible for me having the opportunity to coach at Fort Walton Beach High School. First of all, Mr. Max Bruner and Mr. Houston Harrison. They gave me the opportunity to coach in the county and at Fort Walton Beach High School. I was on the job, I don't know how long, before I ever met Mr. Bruner. And so those men have meant, and especially Coach Harrison has been close. He coached me in high school, and we've stayed in touch and been real close over the years. And I'm glad Betty could be here today, and we still try to stay in touch. But that meant so much to me and my life, and giving me that opportunity to coach at Fort Walton High School. And then Buck Smith. Buck was probably the first few years a one-man booster club. And when I first came back to Fort Walton, they said, Chester, go talk to Buck and see if he will help you with your program. I said, Buck is a Choctaw graduate, and Choctaw graduate's just not going to help Fort Walton people because we're that dedicated to our school. And I didn't do it for a long time. But then I asked him, and he did, and I couldn't have asked for somebody to be. He never tried to tell any of us what to do, how to do, or demanded anything. All of the materials for the annex to the field house that we use for a weight room, because of Buck. We'd go out on begging expeditions. That came from Gatlin Lumber and Surplus and Salvage. Smith Plumbing installed the first sprinkling system on the practice field, which is now the stadium. I don't know if it's still there or not, but helped us get a lot of things that if it hadn't been for him, we wouldn't have been able to get in the normal budget. Now, the Bible tells us that, or insinuates or kind of implies a little bit, that Jacob died leaning on his staff. Now, I don't know, Jim, if that is literal, but it can certainly happen in other areas, and especially in coaching. If you don't have a staff that's loyal to you and that wants to be as successful as you and not plotting how to get your job, you're not going to have much success. You'll die leaning on your staff. But fortunately, at Fort Walton Beach High School, I had the pleasure of coaching with some guys that were not only coaches, we were friends. People like Eddie Davenport, Larry Olson, Dale Holmes, Phil Brogdon, Gary Wood, Bob Kellogg, and several more. But those were the ones that were there the longest and were not only good coaches, but good teachers and just people that we enjoyed being around. And when you got that kind of atmosphere, it makes coaching a lot more fun, especially when you lose a tough game and you look forward to getting back with those guys, because it makes it a little easier. And then the players, and I'm not going to try to call names, but people like Cliff and Mike, because I'll leave somebody out, and Cliff mentioned a lot of them. But when we first came there, we only had the 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th grade. And we had players, it's hard to believe today, that came from good families. I don't ever recall a serious discipline problem that we had, other than the average things that we all did and did at times, you know, act up, as we say, cut the fool or whatever. But never do I recall a serious discipline problems, and the parents were involved in what we were doing. I think that's kind of a rarity today that you find that. But we had some kids that were disciplined, and they were easy to coach, and they enjoyed it and wanted you to coach them. Now, in closing, I just want to tell you again, I want to thank the All Sports Association. I've got a lot of great memories from Fort Walton Beach High School, and you have added to the list today. And I appreciate what you have done. The accommodations were super. I wish we could go back and stay a couple of weeks. Can we? But it's been nice, and I just appreciate so much being recognized, and I want to really give those people credit that have been part of our program and helped us to have the success that we had while we were there. I will let you know, I'm like Cliff, I'm not supposed to preach, but sometimes I can't help saying something. But I do teach and coach today, but I hope I'm doing it in a little different way and accomplishing something. And spend all that money on my hair, my mouth won't work. But I teach Sunday school with a couple of people that I know a lot of. You know, Dick and Linda Wright. Now, Dick was pastor at Shalimar United Methodist Church in Crestview and different places, and Linda worked in the school system, worked with Robert out at Blue Water especially, and their son Matt graduated from Choctaw. Great people, and Dick made me promise I'd brag on him while I was here, so I wanted to be sure and do that. Now, I want to do something. Jim mentioned those people that have gone on before us. We've all lost good friends. I did not know about Jackie Burkett. And family members and so forth. And if I can do this, coaches don't usually do this kind of thing, but I want to leave you with this and kind of recognize them too. Should I go first and you remain to walk this road along? I'll walk in memory's garden, dear, with all the happy days we've known. In spring I'll look for roses red when fades the lilac bloom, and in the fall when brown leaves call, I'll catch a glimpse of you. Should you go first and I remain for battles to be fought, each thing you've touched along the way will be a hallowed spot. I'll hear your voice, I'll hear you, see your smile and hear your name, and somewhere down, I'll hear your voice and see your name, and you help me. I knew I was going to mess it up. Each thing you've touched along the way will be a hallowed spot. I'll hear your voice, I'll see your name, though blindly I may grope, but the memory of your helping hand will bore me on with hope. Should you go first and I remain to finish out the scroll, no lengthening shadows shall creep in to make this day seem droll. We've had so much happiness, we've had our cup of joy, but memory is one gift of God that death cannot destroy. Should you go first and I remain, one thing I'd have you do, walk slowly down that long, long road, for soon I'll follow you. And I want to know each step you take that I may take the same, because one day down that long, long road, you'll hear me call your name. We'll see you at the house. Thank you.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, I'm kind of a pinch hitter today because Tom Brazil is sitting up there coming down to do a little presentation for Billy, but again, he's going to say a lot of good things. I got to share something else with you. Billy first came back, he was coaching junior high ball. And now this is Red Cole's side of the story. I'm sure Billy has one. But anyway, bless Red's soul, he threw a flag on Billy, a 15-yarder, and Billy came out of the coach's box, out on the field, challenging Red, talking pretty ugly, I imagine. Next thing you know, another flag comes down. And Billy continues to want to know why it is, what did he do, blah, blah, blah. Next thing you know, Red's hat comes off. Billy's still jawing. He said, Billy, I've already told you 3 times, get off the field. Get off the field. Now, I've laid down 2 flags in my hat, and I don't want to embarrass these people or me taking my shirt off. But I got you for 45 right now. Billy said, 45 yards? You got me? I sure do. How you going to penalize me 45 yards? And Red looked at him and said, 1 step at a time.
I'm going to show my side of that.
Really? You just made this a lot easier. Cliff took us back in the time machine, so I'll do the same thing. It's the first time I ever met Billy Mikel. I was a golfer at Fort Walton Beach High School, and Coach Norris had a very scientific method for choosing the golf coach. So whatever assistant football coach wanted to play golf for free and babysit us. So we had 2 in 2 years. I'm pretty good. I'm coming back for my senior year, and my main concern is who's the golf coach going to be? And people were saying, well, it's Billy Wayne, Billy Wayne. I'm like, Billy? They're talking like Billy Wayne like he was John Wayne, you know? And I'm like, this is Billy Wayne. So that's Bobby Mikel's older brother. And I'm like, this is going to be a piece of cake then. And Bobby, so you had the first meeting, last science room with the steps going up, and he calls us in there for our first golf team pre-tryout meeting. And he starts like Newt Rockney. I mean, if you throw a club, you're going to do push-ups. If you curse, you're going to do sit-ups. So we're going to be talking about things like winning, you know. We're like, what is this? So he gets the fire and brimstone, and he gets to the end, and he says, tryouts are going to be next Tuesday. All right, any questions? And so I go, and I mistakenly ask, so tryouts are Tuesday. We're going to start practice on Wednesday? And Billy looks at me and goes, yeah, if you make it. Being the confident 17-year-old, I looked back and said, if I make it, yeah. We went outside and my guys were like, he doesn't know who he's dealing with here. You're number 1 golfer. But when I look back at it at the time, I had no idea who I was dealing with. I had no idea that the 26-year-old transplant coach who just came in, just left a stellar career at Southern Miss, 3-year starter as football. They wouldn't let you play as a freshman. Baseball team until Coach Van said you can't play anymore. I had no idea that this coach of mine, when you have all ACC, all SEC, he was 3 times all independent team. I had no idea that he would be the all-time leading receiver in yards and catches at Southern Miss. Even Lewis Lips, who played for the Steelers, couldn't break it. Nobody broke it until the game changed into the spread, wide open RPOs and stuff that we know now. I had no idea that guy who I said was Bobby's brother was in his dad's living room the year before, and Bear Bryant was in trying recruiting Bobby. And he looked at Billy and he goes, boy, I missed on you. I ain't missing on your brother. I had no idea that 9 years later he would be a first ballot Hall of Famer into the Southern Miss M Club Hall of Fame. He was the 1990 All Sports president here, brought Lou Holtz here for the first time because Lou's been here twice. He's given 34 years of his life to the school district. He still volunteers at Plough Elementary School. We were having lunch at Kinfolk's not long ago, and some guy came over, I don't know, his 40s, I don't know, and he, Coach Mikel, and Billy was just, hey, how you doing, bud? Take care, boy. And he sits down. I said, you remember that guy? And he goes, I can't. And I started doing the math. If you have 25 kids times 6 periods times 34 years, and then you add in the number you had as principal, you're over 6,000 kids. But he made that guy feel like that there's no way he didn't remember him. He's just an incredible man. I believe that when I read the quote that when God measures a man, he takes the tape measure and puts it around the heart. So not only is this guy an incredible athlete, he's an incredible human being. And I am proud to present for his second Hall of Fame induction in this world, my coach, my mentor, and my friend, Billy Mikel.
Before I get started, I'm going to clear up the red coal story. We're playing Pryor Junior High School. We blocked the punt. Now, as all of you know, when you block the punt, you can hit the punter. Well, we hit the punter and red throws the flag. And that's automatic 15-yard penalty, first down. And I couldn't figure out, but I will say this, Rube. He got all the way to his belt. We started out on 40-yard line on this end. We were on the 4-yard line when we got through. But it was a bad call. So I'll leave it at that. I want to introduce my family. I've got most of them here today. I got one sister and family in Atlanta, Georgia. I got another sister that couldn't be here. But I want to start with my baby sister. And y'all raise your hand just like, that's Cindy Belcher, Linda Offord. That's her grandson, Brindley. And now, this guy right here has been getting on me ever since I got inducted to the Choctaw Hall of Fame. He said that I left him and my son-in-law out and never introduced him. Today I'm going to introduce you, buddy. Jonathan Laird, my nephew. Jonathan played golf for me too, Tom. Pretty good golfer. He used to beat Bubba Watson pretty regular. And I witnessed that. My future-to-be son-in-law is a retired Marine. That's Chris. My youngest daughter, Allison. My youngest granddaughter, Miss Emma. Now, my other granddaughter had to go back because she's in some kind of one of them fancy choirs back in Niceville High School, so she had to go back. And it's hard to believe when you got a 17-year-old granddaughter. Y'all know what I'm talking about. And they're driving, you know what I mean? But anyway, she had to go back and be there because it's just the way she is. And this is my oldest daughter, Katie Mikel. And Katie is the one that got me into mentoring this young man at Blue Elementary, and probably one of the greatest things that I've ever done. And I want to encourage you, if you have some time, and I didn't realize how much time I had now that I was retired, but if you had some time, please mentor and go to a school and please mentor. And sitting here today, I'm going to tell you about the greatest mentor that I've ever seen. She used to go hunt the middle schools, junior high schools back then, to find the worst kids in the school. And when they got to Choctaw, she took them in her class. That was Betty Harrison. When they came out, I can tell you, I promise you, when they came out of that class, they walked across that stage, the first one they went to was Betty Harrison. And I can't think of anybody that you had that aren't just outstanding human beings. And like she said, they were job ready. That's the kind of people we need, working with our kids. And it's all important. So if you get a chance, it will humble you. It will bring tears to your eyes. The first time I met my little buddy Jaden, it'll bring tears to the eyes, but I think it's something important in life that we should do. The next lady I want to say something really nice about is Miss Bergani. Miss Bergani, we didn't know it for a long time, but I've known her family a long time. And actually, I played with one of her relatives, and some of y'all may remember him, Larry Moulton. I think he coached at Fort Walton with you, Coach, I believe.
I think after I was gone.
After you go. Larry Moulton. Larry, we talked Larry out of leaving Auburn University we knew that wasn't good enough for him. He needed to come on over to Hattiesburg and be with us. Don't believe that. But Larry was a great athlete. And on top of that, Larry was a great person. And I'm going to talk about some things in a minute. But the thing I want you to always remember, I was honored shortly after we graduated in 69 or 70. We were honored at the University of Southern Mississippi by the M Club Association as the 2 greatest athletes for that entire year in every sport. I mean, and they always used to have one, but they couldn't decide, I guess, so we split it, which was fine with me. I couldn't have been on a stage with a finer man, a finer athlete, and we couldn't throw the ball to Larry. Now, I want you to understand, we couldn't pass it to him. We had to, if we run a toss sweep, we'd turn around and hand it to him. Larry had little fingers. One of them went out this way, one that way, and everything. I'm right on it, but once he got it in his hands, it was all over. And the year we beat Ole Miss in 1970, they call it the shot heard around the world. Larry scored the first touchdown that day, and it was like the momentum caught us all up, and we went in there, and what a great win that was for our program. I want to thank Cliff Lewis. What makes me feel the greatest is this. I've got 2 guys sitting on that stage. I'm going to turn away from him for just a minute. I got 2 guys sitting on that stage who are my former players. Nothing makes an old coach happier than to know that your kids are successful. I got another one out here, Jonathan. I coached him in golf. To see these guys grow up and to become what they are, everybody says, well, what's the reward in coaching? There it is right there. That's the greatest reward that I can think of. You don't make a lot of money. Did we, Coach? No. But, it's still, and I got another one right over here, Mr. Moose. I call him Moose still. I know he's a big lawyer now, but he'll always be Moose to me. And I appreciate him for that. And I did work at Fort Walton Beach High School for Coach Norris. And just like Cliff said, some of the most beautiful lessons learned in life were working with Coach Norris and thinking back to some of those kids we had. I saw one the other day over in Hammond, Louisiana. I went over to Southeastern to visit my relatives. Scott Allen. He walks up to me, and this guy's big and well built now, and I didn't even recognize him. But I got myself through it, and he said, Coach, I'm Scott Allen. I hugged his neck. You remember Scott, don't you? Scott was one of those kids that didn't have a lot of ability, but hard work didn't frighten him. I'll get into that in just a minute. I don't want to be here too long. I know you're ready to go to work and all, but there's a couple of people I'd like to recognize. I want y'all to know this. Robert, stand up. Robert Mikel. Robert and I were talking one day, and we were just talking about, Robert said, yeah, I went to FSU, and I went to Southern Mississippi, and we get talking and talking and talking. Now, we played FSU. We played against each other as freshmen.
Toughest game I've ever been in.
I'll tell you why he says that, because we were winning. They drove the ball down to our 4-yard line, and they had 21 plays to score a touchdown because officials kept throwing a flag.
Billy brings out the best of the officials.
I had a friend tell me, one of my guys that played in that game with me, he said, well, gosh, we've been hosed by our own officials. But anyway, it was 21-20, if I remember right, and Robert was there, and I think that to be able to, 2 guys to end back up in the same place is pretty cool. And then I was able to follow Robert at the Department of Juvenile Justice, and after he retired, and then so we kind of had a good parallel career. I want to recognize this next guy because, and I want to talk to a little bit about it in a minute. Bill Roberts. Bill and I go back a long, long way. Now he's much older than me, but we go back a long way. We played together, played baseball together. I don't think we ever played. We weren't too good in basketball, were we? No, we didn't play much basketball. But we played a lot of football, and I can tell you now, we tied the #1 team in the nation, Gainesville High School, at Meg Stadium one night. I caught a touchdown pass. We're down 21-20. Bill Roberts throws a halfback pass and hits me right in the arm. We catch it, we beat them, or we tie them 21-all. knocked them out of the national championship. You remember that game? That was the game that Wyman Townsend walked in the dressing room at halftime and said, if y'all were scared, I'll go outside now and call this thing off. And he turned around and walked out the door, and everybody's kind of looking at each other, you know, and nobody was going to admit, Wyman Townsend, that we were scared. I promise you. You didn't do that. But anyway, Bill Roberts, I just want to thank Bill for all the times that we've been together and the things that we have done. And I can rest assured that none of it was bad. It was all good stuff. I want to talk to you just if I can, just for a little bit. Tom talked a little bit about the awards and everything, which I'm awful proud of. And that was back in the day. I would love to have played in the offenses today, you know, where they spread everybody out and throw the ball all over the place. And you remember that, Maya, how they do it now? And then be able to play as a freshman. You know, play as a freshman. I mean, I guarantee you, Rob McCarron and I could have played as freshmen. But we had our 4 little games as on the freshman team, you know, and I used to tell them all the time, add my freshman totals into my varsity totals, and nobody will break it. But they don't do that. I want to talk to you, if I can, about 3 things, and I'm going to make them short. It's called the 3 Ps, and this is what I try to live my life after. The first one is always be prepared. I don't care what you do, you got to be prepared. If it means, you know, your job, you'd be surprised sometimes if you prepare for it, how successful you can really be. I want to give you an example. My dad, if I wasn't in college or I wasn't in school, I worked at Arthur Michael Plumbing Company. I've been on Okaloosa Island when the pipes were froze with a blowtorch throwing out pipes under there because nobody had covered their pipes. Dad'd be standing up there directing. You got one right over here, you know one. But every morning at 5 o'clock I got up. And I remember one time I got up, it was cold. I put all the clothes I had, which wasn't many, but I put them on. So I go outside with Dad in the truck. We always parked the truck in the back of the yard in an old dirt road. Went out back and I got up in the front of the truck and my dad looked over at me and he said, "You ride in the back." I said, "Dad, it's cold back there. I can't do that." He said, "No, when you become as smart and prepare like Shorty, then you can ride in the front with us." Shorty was the guy that worked for my dad. He was short, but it was him, my dad and Shorty, and bless his heart, I love him. We went out to, some of you may remember, Fanjiska Motel out here on Highway 98, just the other side of Destin. We went out there and it had one of those parking lots that had compacted shale, hard. Well, I jumped off the truck with a shovel. I'm talking about being prepared. With a shovel. Shorty got off the truck with a pick, a sledgehammer, and a shovel, and a bag, paper bag. We got around lunch, you know what I mean? Shorty got his bag out, and I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "I'm eating lunch." I said, "Oh, no, that's no problem. Dad will be back in just a little." He said, "No, you don't understand. Dad will be here at 5 o'clock to pick us up." We had 8 ditches to dig. I had got about 3 yards in mine. Shorty had done 4, and I broke my shovel, but was trying to get on that shale, you know what I mean? And so that's a lesson that Dad taught me about being prepared in life. It may be something you may not think is as important as you think it is, but as I thought back in my life, that meant a lot to me in doing that. The next, and this is on being prepared. When I first got to Southern Mississippi, Mom and Dad dropped me off in front of the dorm on the sidewalk. I asked Dad if I had Dad's Army trunk that he had in World War II. I had everything I had and owned in that trunk. We got it out of the back of the car, and it up pulls this car beside us. The guy gets out, the man starts talking to Dad, and that was it. That guy was Lionel Fayard. Well, Lionel got his trunk out, you know what I mean? And we're trying to figure out, okay, are these guys going to help us get these trunks inside? No. The answer we got was, "We're visiting, you guys are big enough, strong enough, get them in there. Get them in there." Well, we did that. But on the way over there, we got just west of Mobile, Alabama. My dad says to me, he says, "Son, all those times," see, I never got paid. Remember, he'd give me $5 to go out on a date, and the last thing he said is put gas in the car. So we got just west of Mobile, Alabama, and I had already told my mom, now Mom, don't mention nothing about our laundry check. That's $15. Remember that? So Dad says, son, I got $25 I put in your bank account, and gave me one of those little green checkbooks, you know, that you fold over like that. Y'all probably all have one of them. And so I looked in there, sure enough, $25. We went a little bit further west. Mama says, now son, when you get that $15 laundry check, I'm going to give you instructions on how to wash clothes. You don't want to put colored clothes in with your white clothes. They'll all be bleeding on each other or something, you know. So a little bit further down the road, Dad says, now what is this $15? Mom said, well, they get that, you know, and everything. Dad looks at me, he says, son, when I get back, I'm taking out 15. I said, Dad, that leaves me 10. He said, no, that'll leave you 25 when you get your 15. I said, well, okay. I mean, you didn't argue with my dad, but so I said, okay. And I got a little bit further down the line, and I said, well, what's the point? He says, I want you to learn how to be prepared to manage your money and manage your life and know the difference, what you need and what's just something to have. Another lesson about being prepared. The next one is priorities. I think that's one of the most important things you can do is always prioritize your life and your family. I'm going to give you one story about priority. We're riding back in 1984. We're coming back from the Hall of Fame thing in Hattiesburg. And so I said, Mom, can I ask you a question? She said, sure, son, what is it? I just got inducted into the Hall of Fame by Charlie Pride. Promise you, I got pictures of it. Charlie Pride was one of the greatest guys that I believe that I have ever been around. He told me he was a multi-millionaire before anybody knew he could sing. I mean, the guy he took us out after the banquet, and my mom and dad, and I got to sing Kiss an Angel Good Morning with him. Or rather, I stood beside him. I said, so Mom, let me ask you a question. What's more important? Wasn't that great Hall of Fame? She says, no, son, most important thing was when you graduated. Because my mom's priority was, I was the first Michael to go to college, being the oldest, I guess. I was the first one to graduate. And that was more important to her than catching a ball or running a pass route or hitting a baseball or anything else. But that was priority. Always get your priorities straight and make sure you keep them there. I want to talk about people. I told you a little bit about Charlie Pride. He's famous, got a lot of money, but you know what he is? He's a person. He's just like you and me that has a talent, that works real hard, believes in what he's doing, and will take nothing but the best. He's from a little town in Mississippi. It's so little, they don't even have a traffic light. Some of y'all probably been in it and you didn't even know it. I got a guy that I became real good friends. After we beat Ole Miss that year, the quarterback, their great quarterback, said that he was going to play the first half, go inside, get his coat and tie on, and go out at halftime and escort his girlfriend as the homecoming queen. I'm here to tell you, Archie Manning was still on the field in the fourth quarter when a 197-pound linebacker, you played against him too, tackled him for a 6-yard loss, and we beat him. I mean, one of the greatest things. Archie Manning and I became good friends. I won't tell a story of my wife. She actually threw Archie and I out of the house one night after an all-sport banquet. I said, hey, Archie Manning's here. She said, I don't care. Both of y'all get out of here, you know. Archie Manning. I want to tell you a story real quickly. I was fortunate enough, when I got to school at Southern Miss, on a Saturday, we checked in, and so Sunday morning, 5 o'clock. There's somebody banging on the door. Somebody's banging on the door. Lionel and I are both hollering, what? Go away, it's sleeping. Guy says, I tell you what, I'm going to go away. You don't open this door, I'm going to walk through it. So I got up and I unlocked the door and opened it, and there stood a man 6'6", 320 pounds. Barney Poole. Anybody in here ever heard of Barney Poole? Barney Poole is the only 4-time All-American. He played at the Army, and you knew who he played with, the running backs, you know those guys. He went to North Carolina State, made All-American. Transferred to Ole Miss and made All-American again. Living legend. And that was going to be our receiver coach. He said, Billy, yes, sir. I'm going to pick you up at 7:30. Yes, sir. I couldn't figure out why. Anyway, he said, wear your tie. I said, Coach, I came to college where I didn't have to wear no tie. He said, no, you put your tie on. So I did. 7:30 on Sunday morning, he picked me up, and I met his wife and his 2 daughters. Beautiful family. We went down to the Methodist Church on 4th Street. Now, if you've never been to Mississippi, you don't understand how big Methodist churches are. They're big, aren't they? And so I got down there, and of course, this seats about 1,500 to 2,000 people. And so we went, and like in Mississippi, everybody likes to sit around and talk when it's over with, you know what I mean? And then what they do is when they find out that you played for Pi Van out at the college, you got invited to dinner. Well, that suited me fine. Fried chicken, mashed potatoes, turnip greens, and cornbread. So we get back, and every Sunday at Southern Miss, they fed all the coaches and their families and the players. We all ate together. It was a family thing. Coach Poole comes up to me, he says, I'm picking you up at 6 o'clock tonight. Okay, where are we going, Coach? He said, well, they're having a little thing down there with youth at the church, and he said, I think it'd be good if you come. He said, oh, by the way, you're speaking. I said, what do I speak on? He said, well, you're the speaker. You figure it out. He said, but bring your Bible. I said, well, I'll have my Bible, because I'm going to be praying over that to help me out. So we walk in. I said, how many people's going to be here? He said, 20, 25. We walk in, and there's probably 1,500 to 1,600 young kids sitting in this Methodist. They had brought every Methodist church youth groups into one place at the night. So I'm sitting up on this chair, and I got my Bible. I'm holding my Bible in my hand. And I'm thinking, what I'm fixing to make a real fool out of myself. All of a sudden, I was shaking so bad. You know, I mean, I had played against all these people, played in front of 90,000 people, 100, it doesn't matter. I dropped my Bible, and it opened up. This is the way God works. It opened up to Matthew, the 5th chapter, the 16th verse. And I preached on that. I didn't preach. I talked on it that night. And it says, let your light shine before men, that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven. And I think that verse has meant more to me in my life than anything, because I think we ought to be doing things that people see, and we praise God for those things that we do, because he's really the reason why we're here. I'm going to talk about 2 more guys, and I'm going to get out of your way. First one was Terry Bradshaw. Terry Bradshaw played at Louisiana Tech University. Terry's famous speech everywhere he goes is, how come every fat, bald-headed guy thinks they look like me? I said, Terry. I said, Terry, I said, look here. I mean, maybe you look like me. He said, nah. We had the worst secondary in the history of football at Southern Mississippi. We go to Louisiana Tech, and we're playing Terry Bradshaw. We are the only school in Terry Bradshaw's history that he did not throw a touchdown pass against. Don't ask me how, but we were so bad in secondary, Lionel we used to go volunteer to play until coach told us to get our back down to the other end and out of the way. Held Terry Bradshaw to no touchdowns. But I want to tell you about Terry Bradshaw, like I mentioned about a couple of them just a few minutes ago. Terry Bradshaw is a person. He's no different than you and me. He might make more money than some of us, but he has a talent, a God-given talent, and he took that talent and made the best out of it he can. And I think in life, that's what we got to do no matter what that talent is. The last one was Ray Guy. The thing about Ray Guy is, in practice, Ray never got to kick the ball when we get on the other side of 50. They wanted him to have the record. But in practice, if you were on the field and you were on the kick team, Ray Guy kicked that thing so high and so far, we'd run forever, seemed like, golly. And then we had a pooch punter, Steve Broussard. Steve would kick it up there about 30 yards, 9 miles high, and then that unit would run down, and they'd be back standing in the huddle, and we're over there now. We're down here, we're trying, so we had to have a long talk with Ray to explain to him that, you don't necessarily in practice have to kick it that far until Coach Underwood found out we did it, and then we had to run extra. The one thing about covering kickoffs with Ray, if you could sprint 10 yards and avert the first little wave, you could stop because the ball went in the end zone. You could just stop and good job. A person. I still see Ray in my wallet. I have his phone number. I still see Ray every time I go to Hattiesburg. Got his blue jeans on, and he's just like you and me. There's no difference in him. He doesn't try to pretend that he's #1 draft choice or that he's an all-pro or he's in the Hall of Fame. And we do have 2 Hall of Famers now, him and Brett Favre. And Brett's another story I'll tell you sometime, but that guy's hard to hem up. He is something else. I want to leave one thing with you. I want to say thanks to the All Sports Association for letting me be in your Hall of Fame. I know in 1990 we were at the fairgrounds, and I remember Lou Holtz. We picked him up at the airport, and we're riding down Lewis Turner Boulevard, and I said, "Coach, you want to see where you're speaking tonight?" He said, "Well, I'd love to." We whipped into the fairground. He said, I've never spoken at a cattle barn." He said, but I'm going to tell you what Lou Holtz did. Some people like him, some don't, but Lou Holtz, we gave him a nice check, paid us everything down here. He cut commercials for Special Olympics and made a lot of commercials for us, free, no charge. I got a letter about a week after the banquet, and it said there was a check in it for, I think it was $17,000. He said, "I want to donate all of this money to the Special Olympics for my wife and me." I mean, that's the kind of guy he is. And so, but he's a person, just like us. So the lesson I want to say is, before we criticize, maybe learn who you're talking about or learn who you're with, and you'll learn something about them. And don't be bashful about asking. Just do it, because a lot of times it doesn't matter. Now, we're all on the team together. And we have the greatest head coach ever, and that's Jesus Christ. And if we follow our head coach in what he teaches us, we'll never fail and we'll never lose a game. Thank you all again for having me, and I appreciate the award. Thank you.
Well, congratulations to both of our new inductees. Reverend Ross is going to have a few closing comments, and then I would invite you all to go outside so that we can enshrine these 2 folks in the hall. Reverend Ross.
My friends, about 2 minutes is all that I will need. The great value of sport, I believe, which you personify so well, is this. Sporting events call us to be the best individual that we can possibly be. Agreed? I think of Larry Moulton. I didn't know this, but Larry Moulton, when I was a young guy back before the Earth's crust cooled down, Larry, when he was a senior in high school at Andalusia, Doug Barfield was his coach, and he worked out with weights with me. But after we finished the workout, Larry would always want to wrestle.
Yeah, still good.
Oh, gosh. An amazing fellow. I totally agree. But the truth is, when we play sports, we're called upon to be the best individual that we can possibly be. But this is a paradox of sports. We're also called to be the best teammate that we can be. And that's a beautiful balance that we find in athletics. Closing story quickly is this. There was a Jewish town, had a young rabbi, and they warred all the time. Just couldn't get along and bothered this young rabbi. So he said, "I'm going to go to see the big old rabbi and see if he has any word for me." So he went and he talked to him, poured out his heart. And the old rabbi said, "My son, I have this to say to you. I don't know what's wrong in your town. I do not. But I do know this. One person in your town is the Messiah. Young rabbi said, who is he? No, rabbi said, I don't know. All I know is one person in your town is the Messiah. He went back, he thought, who could it be? The tailor, the baker, or whatever? You know, they never found out. But 30 years later, the people who visited that town thought it was the most loving, beautiful place they'd ever seen. They never found out who the Messiah was, but 30 years later, it didn't matter. Amen? That's how we should treat each other. Thanks much.
All right, Bill, are you going to do the honors outside? Sure. Thank you all for coming. Please join us out in the hall.
All right, guys, I'll just say this is the 16th Hall of Fame class for the All Sports Association. Listening to y'all talk, I know you're proud to be in here, but I can tell you, the 30 people that preceded you are just as proud to induct y'all in our Hall of Fame. Thank you much, Bill. If I can take this off, Bill, you might have to help me. Congratulations. Yeah, a lot of hair. Must be something.
Congratulations, guys.
Thank you very much.